The iPad Air was a great new era for iPad. It was slim, fast, and elegant. It was the way Apple intended it to look like when first introduced in 2010. It meant so much for me that I went and engraved one of life's greatest messages on it. Today, a year later, iPad Air 2 is here, and it looks stunning. I was convinced enough that Apple would not be able to improve on the first generation iPad Air, and of course, I was wrong. This new device is hands down the very best full-size tablet available anywhere. The second you get to hold it in your hands, everything becomes relevant. It just screams quality. The aluminum enclosure is seamless across the entire product. It is silky smooth to caress. The contours are then harmoniously built with that stunning chamfered edge finish. It is dramatically thin. This thing is impossibly thin. I mean, most glass windows built in homes are thicker than the iPad Air 2. Really, for a moment, you just tend to stop and take the time to wonder how can something so premium be this thin and light? Nobody should take this for granted. I mean, how could you? iPad Air 2 is as thin as the 5th generation iPod Touch, yet with countless times the processing power. The microphones have been relocated and Apple omitted the lock mute button found on prior iPad models. To really sum it all up, the design of iPad Air is beautiful yet non-intrusive of that large 9.7-inch Retina display. But this was also true of the original iPad Air, so technically both iPads are really stellar. Now let's slide over and talk about my favorite part, the display. Retina display on iPad Air 2 is considerably improved. The new screen is now laminated right onto the glass so that glare is reduced. Seriously guys, this display is as good as one can possibly be. It is just you and iOS 8. There is no distraction. Content pops out with rich, natural colors across the entire display. Text, photos, Videos and games scream on that bright retina display. On top of that is IPS technology for off-angle viewings. Inside iPad Air 2 is enhanced technology. An all-new 88X chip. This is a 64-bit triple-core processor running at 1.5 GHz. That by itself is amazing, but putting icing on the cake is 2 GB of RAM. Yes, 2 GB of RAM, the very first on an iOS device. And so, the reason why the speed test earlier was not overwhelming was that Apple built iPad Air 2 to be sort of over the top. Not a lot of apps are currently taking advantage of it. It's like Apple has some big software plans for it later in the future. In other words, it is the truly future-proof iPad. It moves everything like a champ. The whole iPad does not warm up one bit. Even after a long period of use, this is actually one of my favorite features of iPad Air 2. It stays cool. This is due to a very energy efficient chip called the 88X. The story is actually composed of two new iPad models this year, iPad Air 2 and iPad Mini 3. The selling point for these two new iPad models being Touch ID, the fingerprint scanner. iPad Mini 3 did not receive landmark features such as the bigger brother iPad Air 2. Last year though, iPad Mini 2 was a widely praised tablet, especially for its size. And this year, that same iPad model is $100 less expensive. Unless of course you crave gold and Touch ID, then iPad Mini 3 can still be a nice addition. And so now we see that iPad Air 2 actually preserves its tabs, unlike the other tablet where reloading is required in order to view your websites again. So this is very convenient. I cannot stress this enough for a tablet to be able to act as a real desktop computer and do lots of browsing with no memory issues. Other goodies of iPad Air 2 are Wi-Fi 802.11 AC with MIMO, an M8 coprocessor, and again, laptop loud speakers. The camera received an overhaul too. Same megapixels as the latest iPhones, 8 megapixels with nice optics such as f2.4 aperture, slow motion, at 120 frames per second, by the way, and 43 megapixels panoramas. Front camera with a 2.2 aperture to let even more light, and burst mode for rapidly capturing still shots in real time. All of this is possible thanks to a fast CPU. Nothing lags on iPad Air 2. You have to get your hands on it to understand. My iPad mini Gold is a 16GB model, while iPad Air 2 is 128GB space gray.
And I'll write your name